Sierra Leone was at war. We had a decade-long civil war. So I found it at that point very difficult to understand my dad's motivation and his inspiration. Sometimes we had threats, the rebels were approaching our city, and my dad would leave us and he will tell us he's going to help people who've been wounded and injured in battles around our city. And we were like, what is this man doing? You're leaving your family. Good afternoon. I am Kauru Sandi, Secretary General of the Sierra Leone Red Cross Society. We are having a very interesting conversation this afternoon, sharing our experiences within the Red Cross movement, the challenges we face within our national societies, and the future of our national societies. For this interesting conversation, I'm joined by someone from Trinidad and Tobago. Will you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jill DeBoog, and I'm the current president of the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross. A pleasure to join this conversation.
You see, Red Cross is an interesting world and a very lovely place to serve. And it's important to highlight the fact that we all come to Red Cross for a reason. There's a story. Every volunteer has a story. I want us to start this conversation by highlighting that experience. How did we come to the Red Cross? What inspired us? What has kept us going for all these years? You may want to start.
So, to share my journey, it has been a very interesting, diverse, layered one. I began with the Red Cross in 2004 as a staff of the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross. Stayed there about 6 months and then went on to the International Federation of the Red Cross, where I stayed within the international sector for about 8 years, working at the Trinidad-based office of the IFRC. I then left the International Red Cross. I stayed within the humanitarian space. I worked with a local NGO, and my journey brought me right back to the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross, where as a volunteer, I was encouraged to run for a position at board. And that saw me becoming president of the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross in 2018. And since then, it has been a wonderful journey. I think for me, the very first introduction into the Red Cross allowed me to, it kind of mirrored with my own internal values, the values of the Red Cross. So there was synergy I found in what the organization was birthed for, its principles, and my own principles. And today, moving from a staff of the National Society to a volunteer in the highest capacity of being president of the organization is really a privilege and an honor, because it allows me now to take my experiences through life, through the journey of a humanitarian, and bring that into perspective in terms of the varying views, not just from staff and from volunteer, but also from the community. And what I can say is that journey saw me also to now be, I'm a board member of the IFRC. So I now sit on the global board. And also it has, in June this year, I was also elected vice president of our regional Americas group called CORI. So it's indeed a privilege to be called to serve at higher level. It allows me to really bring, a rich experience from an island, because the small island states experience very varying challenges, circumstances to other national societies. So having an opportunity to have that voice heard at various levels is indeed a privilege. So tell me about your journey.
What an amazing journey. It's interesting, you joined in 2004. I was already 10 years in. I joined in 1994, actually in school. So when I went to secondary school, by then my dad was the chairman of our local branch. And that was my inspiration to join. And by then also, Sierra Leone was at war. We had a decade-long civil war. So I found it at that point very difficult to understand my dad's motivation and his inspiration. Sometimes we had threats, the rebels were approaching our city, and my dad would leave us and he will tell us he's going to help people who've been wounded and injured in battles around our city. And we were like, what is this man doing? You're leaving your family. You're leaving us at risk and you're going to help people. What if there's an attack in your absence? And that is exactly what happened. Once when he went to help some refugees from Liberia, there was an attack and he went his way, we went our way, we were lost. We were apart for like 7 months. We never, and those were the days before telephone communication, so nobody knew where the other person was. And it was a difficult experience for us. But going through all of that, and then we got reunited after, and then we started asking questions. Why are you so motivated to do this? And you still want to do it even after all we've been through as a family. And he told us, in life, what you give to others is what you'll be remembered for. And that became a motivation for me. So as I entered secondary school, I joined the youth group in my school. And I became very passionate, so I became the leader for my youth group in school. And then I started attending the district level meetings, the youth meetings at district level. And we organized symposiums, we organized debates, and those kinds of things on humanitarian topics. And I shined through that, so I eventually became the district youth chairman. And then they started inviting me for national level youth meetings, the national youth camps, national youth elections, and so on and so forth. So in 2008, I decided to go for the national youth chairman. And I won the election, so I became the national youth chairman. And I served in that capacity for a good number of years. And later, when I left university, the Secretary General then was very impressed with my service, and then he recruited me to serve in some PMER capacity. So I worked for 2 years, and then I left and went to private sector, had a lot of experience. And then our nation went through another crisis, the Ebola crisis of 2014. And it was a very serious challenge for our nation. We lost over 4,000 people to the Ebola virus, and it was the biggest challenge our national society had faced. And the leadership of the national society did not survive because there are several integrity issues in the management of Ebola funds. So there was an overhaul and then a new recruitment process which saw me coming in as the Secretary General. All through this journey, I've been really inspired by how young people, old people are motivated to help other people. And what has been interesting for me is that in certain circumstances, even the volunteers themselves are exposed to a lot of threats, a lot of risks. They may be going through the same challenges and difficulties, yet they put the needs and the interest of others above themselves. That has really been inspirational for me. I remember a few years ago, we had a big fire disaster in a particular community, and we had a couple of volunteers within that community. And their houses were completely burned down. And by the time I got to the scene, those volunteers were helping other families. They'd forgotten about their own misery and their own challenges, and they were supporting other families. Every time I see such selfless sacrifice and service to humanity, it inspires me. So in spite of the huge challenges we face at different levels, the fact that people can forget about their own challenges and problems and still go to communities, help people in need, prevent, alleviate suffering, has been really, really an inspiration for me. And that takes us to the next part of our conversation. What has been important for us, or what do we find important? Why are we still in this movement? I mean, it's been a long journey.
I think even from both our descriptions on what brought us into Red Cross, very diverse pathways, but all leading to the same place, being inspired by a calling that's, greater than us. Having that selfless desire to, be part of the solution. I think it's all those things that fuels and motivates and, keeps us pushing to drive, solutions and to drive change and to drive possibilities and potential, to bring even the voices of young people in a space like this. We're at a Global Innovation Summit. And for me, I'm more intrigued to find out from you. So I'm going to change the narrative a bit because this is a conversation.
Sure.
And for those, I'm sure listening to us, and even for me, as leadership, even at various levels, from my national society to regional to global, I'm here, a deliberate decision to be here at this Innovation Summit. And, I'm kind of intrigued as to why don't we have more leaders in this space? And I'm kind of, wondering, like, what motivated you to be here, to take up this, opportunity to be here. And I think if I can infuse the conversation a bit around that, to better understand the importance of something like this, because for me, I would want to share my choice to be here, because I think innovation starts with leadership.
Sure.
It's about culture. It's about creating pathways and having, that space provided for young people, for those who are desirous of bringing ideas to the table, to really, build on those ideas, and, whether it's through failure, success, to at least be encouraged and motivated to bring change and bring a new conversation to national societies. The world is evolving, and as national societies, we too have to evolve to meet the challenges with solutions that can work and can be sustainable. So tell me.
That's a very interesting conversation. I've been very interested in the topic of leadership because I find I did not get into this position by surprise. We were prepared for it through several stages. And the conversations around innovation, around digitalization and leadership are very important. And that's really what is really most important for me now. Even at the national society level, we have this challenge of leadership. The COVID exposed us in a nice way. Mm-hmm. So we suddenly got to that point where people could not move from one place to another. Mm-hmm. So there's a branch is going through a major crisis. I mean, we had double disasters. The COVID was there, and then we had some disasters happening. There was a flood, there was fire incidents. So now you can't move from one district to another. There is a disaster there. Can you trust the leadership at that level to be able to rise up to the challenge? So we've been discussing a lot, getting our leaders prepared, because disasters don't inform us. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the challenges are getting more frequent and even more complicated, the issues we get to face every day. So I think every leader should have been here. Mm-hmm. And because this is the future of our movement, we have to prepare for it. So at the national level, we're finding ways to develop this interest of our leaders on the challenges we face now, but also thinking about the future. We're going to face more challenges in the future. If we find ourselves in a position where our leaders are not prepared to tackle those challenges, we're exposed in a bad way. And at the management level, of course, that's our side of the story. At the management level, I'm also focused on putting in the systems, the structures, the internal controls to ensure that the system can function even when it's exposed. So what happened in the Ebola crisis I mentioned, we had a national society doing business as normal. Maybe for 1 year, you'll have a budget of $1 million, and you'll have maybe, at most, maybe you can have $2 million managing that effectively. And then suddenly you have a disaster and you have 90 million running through that system. It exposes everything. If the leadership at that level is not prepared to deal with 90 million, that's how we got an integrity crisis. So I think innovation is what every leader of the national society or the movement should be thinking about. We have to change because the world is forcing us to. I mean, the way we do business, the way we serve communities, the way we do our things, everything is changing. Unless we jump into that train, we may lose out. So that's why I'm motivated, and that's why I'm here. I want to be in every conversation that's related to innovation, to digitalization, because that's the thrust for my national society. And I guess it's the same path for you.
Certainly. I think when, so for me, and to talk a bit about the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross, what we did, It started from a place of analyzing where we were as a national society, really putting the lens on ourselves and putting things in place to start repairing. So we tackled the systems, the process, and the people of the organization very systematically to be able to, drive change within the organization, because what needed to happen was that a culture shift. Mm-hmm. And if we are true, we know that culture is something that happens culture change happens over time. Even at board level, culture needed to be addressed in terms of being a national society that's ready for the challenges that we are facing in our communities, the challenges that we are facing internally, the challenges that, are present, and the challenges that will be futuristic. I think one of the examples, too, that I would share is even from COVID-19, being ready before we were declared a pandemic in Trinidad and Tobago, being ready with an action plan, for me, demonstrated that we as a national society were thinking about the possibilities, prepared and put things in place for action. And for me, what I've been trying to infuse from governance to management to the operational staff to the teams that are working on projects and support services is really a space of solution-oriented approaches. So what I tell my team all the time is it's okay to bring up challenges. Mm-hmm. Bring the challenges to the table. However, when you're come with a solution. So that we can discuss ideas, we can look at potential solutions. And, if a solution that you bring to the table is not taken on board, don't feel like, how about it? Let's look at recommendations to improve. And trying to, really have a place and a space and pathways where it's possible to design, it's possible to advise for change, it's possible to make recommendations without, without any lens of negativity, but positive feedback, and, help the national society move forward. One of the things that we also brought on board post-pandemic, just about, let me say, post-pandemic, maybe 2021, early 2022, or 2021, 2022, was digital transformation. It's critically important, especially when we're talking innovation and we want to meet communities where we are. It was looking at the national society and trying to understand, are we ready as an organization to address needs using technology as part of the solution, starting from a very simple place of the resources and the hardware that the staff utilize, software that the staff utilize to create solutions. Were we at a place where we were ready to apply those and be adaptable? So it took us through doing a digital scan of the organization to understand the gaps and to start applying solutions. So right now we're in a space where the National Society has new technology, new computers, new software, and we have a consultant working with the staff in terms of making sure the staff moves with the change and not just, saying, here's your laptop, here is the software, use it. We really want to make sure that we take people along and no one is left behind. But it also means as an organization, not just looking at our internal structures, but how are we when it comes to financial sustainability? How are we innovating solutions that allow us to stand better on our 2 feet? So looking at, and I really do believe that sometimes, as a movement, or as national societies, we look internally only. Yeah. And sometimes we need to have a very neutral lens. Mm-hmm. So brought in a consultant to work with us on diversifying income and looking at, doing some research on where we may start from low-hanging fruits and build on that. And again, utilizing stakeholder consultations, talking with the community, talking with our clients to really understand where we can build. And I think it is the approach of making sure that everyone is involved in change and everyone gets to contribute to culture and to that change, to make sure it's sustainable over time. And the pillars that are laid out in the National Society, that foundation, is solid enough. So when I leave in a few years, whoever is replacing can continue to build on that foundation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting experiences there. Very interesting experiences. And we are almost traveling the same path. I like that part about the willingness to accept the challenges, but also to find the solutions.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the same conversations with my board. We get to face difficult conversations, but the first thing we agreed on was, as leaders, we should be prepared for those conversations.
Yes.
There are challenges everywhere. We acknowledge them, but every time we present those challenges, we should have an idea of what solutions we can also profile. And that has been really useful, even for our switch to digitalization. We're also on the same journey, and it's been very interesting. We've made mistakes here and there, we've had challenges, but we are committed. We are going to keep on that journey. So now for things like rapid assessment, we use digital tools. For things like surveillance, we're doing disease surveillance across our border districts. We're using digital tools. Volunteers in remote communities can just send a text message, we get alerts at HQ, and we respond where response is needed. So that's very interesting, but it begins with the openness of the leadership to look at the available options, the available tools, and to be willing to invest, because it takes a lot of investment, but also while doing all of that, to consider sustainability. And that takes me to another thing I wanted us to talk about a little, is the question of what makes us proud to be Red Crossers. I mean, that's, and I'd love to start that conversation, because with me, I think the biggest thing is the brand, our brand. I'm so proud to be a Red Crosser, and I think everybody in my National Society is proud to be a Red Crosser. And I think we've not fully leveraged on the potential opportunities connected with that. So when I really get to make use of it, when we have disasters, we have challenges, especially security-related ones. Last year we had riots where, I mean, people were killed, there are exchanges of bullets everywhere. And the Red Cross had to go in to help people that had been injured, people that had been killed. And the riotous youth had set up roadblocks and barricades everywhere. And then we had to drive to, and my team was really scared. And we went through to the boys, and to our surprise, they ran out when they saw the vehicle approaching, but then they saw Red Cross, and they removed all the roadblocks and said, this is Red Cross. That is really touching. I'm really proud that we have a brand that is known everywhere, locally, internationally. Very recently, I visited the president of our country. He's up for elections now. We've just gone through elections, but he's our chief patron, and he was so proud to receive me and the board. And we are touched by the fact that he's been following the news. He's been following our Facebook updates. He knows what Red Cross is doing, where we are. And those sentiments were reflected also by his ministers. And to me, that means our brand is known. Even the man at the helm of affairs knows about the Red Cross and is proud of us. So the same thing happens in the communities. I go to remote communities, and this is the Red Cross. Everybody wants to listen to you. When we had the COVID challenge, there are certain places where the ministry wanted to quarantine a number of families, and they refused. They said, no, they will not do it. It was against that. And then we sent Red Crossers in, and they spoke to them. They said, okay, as long as it's Red Cross, we'll do it. And so I'm really proud of the brand. I think we can still do a lot more to use it for resource mobilization purposes, for humanitarian diplomacy. There's a lot we can leverage on. And that's where I am, the rest of our leadership team are working on. How do we capitalize on that brand, make the best use of it, market it as much as possible, and use that to help more people and save more lives.
From my side, I think these stories quite similar. Maybe a different type of narrative, because our contexts are quite different.
Sure.
However, the thing I'm proudest about is our brand. You know, that symbol, that the power of hope that it provides to community, to staff, to volunteers, to those in leadership. I think the brand holds that power of hope. And in Trinidad and Tobago recently, we launched a campaign called We're More Than a Sign. And this is a campaign actually to basically share a better understanding of the work that we do as Red Cross, because most times people associate the Red Cross with first aid, ambulance service, disaster.
Yes.
And we're a lot more than that. And it's an opportunity for us at home, using that campaign, We Are More Than a Sign, to infuse more knowledge into our community, into our stakeholders, into our partners, about the various facets of the Red Cross and how they can be a contributor in that conversation, how they can be a contributor in the space where we exist. I think some of the poor raising moments I've had with the brand is in the community, really in the community, seeing the relief on someone's face, seeing hope when they see that, sign coming into the community, the vehicle, a staff member with Red Cross branding on it. That sign of hope, that expression of relief and faith. And I think we, as a Red Cross globally, we have established a trust, and certainly in Trinidad and Tobago, we've established a trust with the community that is unparalleled to any other organization. And I do agree, when it comes to leveraging our brand, when it comes to working better and advocating with stakeholders, especially state agencies, where our auxiliary role as a Red Cross is concerned, we don't do enough. We don't do enough to demonstrate our value as a stakeholder and as a responsible organization, making change and creating resilience in community. We're not doing enough. And, we can do better. We are working on doing better. And I think it's every step, every opportunity to have that conversation, strengthens our ability to do more and be better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are more than a sign.
We are more than a sign.
I should do that as well.
I have one question,
Okay.
before we even wrap up this conversation. Is I want to go back to your question or your thought on leadership and getting leadership prepared. What are your thoughts? Because certainly my thoughts on emotional intelligence of leaders, building on the soft skills, building on the element of leadership that can translate a culture shift, that can translate into innovation and can transform organizations. Do you think we do enough as a global organization? I mean, I want to repeat the fact that we're here at our Innovation Summit, and I fail to see the quantity and quality of leaders that should be in this space, that should be hearing from, the technical teams, the innovators. And it's great when you can hear from another national society, the great work, the pilots they have done, the successes, the failures, the support of their leadership in driving change. And, to be in Kenya and to be at Kenya Red Cross and to see all the amazing innovation around the Kenya Red Cross, the models that they have created, how they have infused youth into their innovative spaces and their innovative models, and created opportunities for every voice at every level to be heard, where things are co-designed, solutions are co-designed. I think it's an opportunity where our leaders globally can learn from experiences like this. So tell me what are your thoughts on, as you talk about preparing leaders for future challenges, the use of emotional intelligence and how that could help prepare them?
That's a very interesting question. I agree. We have to prepare our leaders for the challenges of the future. And in fact, that was going to be the last bit of my thoughts on the conversations. Yeah, you stole it from me.
I stole it from you.
But yes, I think our leaders, we still have a lot to do in getting our leaders fully prepared to tackle the challenges of the future. And I want to speak specifically at the national levels. I find that, and I have a thought, I'm not sure that will sit well with everybody, but that's the essence of innovation and change and new ideas. I think one of the major problems with our leadership is the politics. I think we're getting so political that in the process of that politics, we tend to lose some of the actual focus. And in my experience, at least at the local West African level, I find that for the leaders that come, especially in governance, the requirements you have to meet to get to that position are the only most important ones. When you get to the position of being president or being a board member, there are no specific goals set for you to achieve. I mean, you're driving the change. So if you're not a motivated person to bring change, to show that leadership, then nothing happens in the national society. So somehow I think we have to redefine how our politics work. I mean, it's okay to have politics, to have leaders come through politics, but then we should have a way of holding them accountable for those positions. And that also links with this issue of emotional intelligence. So whether or not they are really emotionally intelligent does not count in the actual end delivery, the package they deliver for their national society. So they are not motivated to deliver on that, or to learn a lot more and to take advantage of available experiences, spaces, and platforms where they could significantly enhance their skills around things related to emotional intelligence. And you're leading people that are very diverse, people that come with their own challenges too, mental issues, psychological issues, and all of those things. And you are leading them and you're taking them on a journey. It behooves you as a leader to be emotionally intelligent. Otherwise, putting that team together and getting the best out of them is almost impossible. And you know, we have gone through certain traumatic experiences as a national society, and our volunteers have responded to certain things. Imagine doing something like safe and dignified burial on an Ebola response. You get stigmatized. I mean, we had volunteers whose families said, you know, since you're working for the Red Cross, please find some space to stay for yourself. We cannot sleep in the same room. You're dealing with dead bodies every day. So they were driven essentially out of their homes. As a leader, how can you respond to those issues? Do you even have the emotional intelligence to notice that some of these people in your teams need help themselves? They need support. They need you to be there for them. So I think that's really important for our leaders. The challenges we're going to face in the future, to my mind, there will be more conflicts. I mean, there will be economic hardships leading to food insufficiencies. Of course, climate change. Climate change is a big issue, and I'm sure there will be more disease outbreaks. More epidemics or pandemics will happen. So unless we prepare our leaders for those challenges, there is very little hope for the next generation of humanitarian actors. So those are my thoughts, and I leave you to have the last word on it.
Yeah. So from my end, it certainly is a critical component, because even, and I agree with you, when we look at, you know, our national societies and, you know, the election processes, they vary across national society. Some are deeply politicized. However, regardless of what comes to the top in terms of that leadership grouping, that board, it's the cards you're dealt. And I think in terms of preparing for future challenges like climate change, I mean, the climate is now, so it's not even future, it's now. And how we address those challenges, we have to prepare our board members. First, to make the right decisions, to have the emotional intelligence, the technical competencies. I mean, if they are around the table, if they are missing, we have a responsibility as an organization to prepare at every level within the organization. There's a lot of expectations that are put on our teams. We design strategy, we design direction at board level, and we anticipate and expect that it's implemented the way that, it's given. But it is really a meeting together of a conversation, a really creating pathways, and innovation is no different, because it's, again, the embedded culture that's placed within the organization, where you start creating the pathways, the opportunities, the frameworks to ensure that innovation can happen in the organization freely, and that the team at leadership level, the team at board level, the team at management level have the tools, the competencies, the skills, the know-how to really support and provide, the necessary tools and resources to make that happen. I mean, it's no easy feat. There are no easy solutions. Sure. And I think it starts in with very small steps, and the deliberate choice to do different, be different, and to understand that whatever actions that we do make, it must be evidence-based. It must be locked in our values and our mandates, and that we must always act with an intention that goes beyond us and is sustainable in choice.
It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you, Jill.
Same here.
Wonderful insights from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandy.